Good morning and welcome to Susan Hester, legislative candidate from District 45. Thank you, Susan, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meeting this morning. My name is Gina Ragland, and with us today are lead AARP advocacy volunteers, Susan DeCamp, Bob Lassen, and Danny DeLong. Emily Wick is also joining us from the AARP state office. Susan, we appreciate your time today and taking the time to meet and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families in Nebraska. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. Susan, if you want to start off by giving us a little background about yourself and your campaign, and we're aiming for 5 minutes or less, that would be great. Once we've completed your opening, we'll move into the questions. So welcome, Susan, and go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've lived in Bellevue almost 50 years. I am a retired Bellevue public school teacher. And in that time period, I taught social studies, and I also ran the district's 7 through 12 high ability learner program. So that's kind of my work background there. I am currently the Nebraska Director of Science Olympiad, which is a science competition program that goes throughout the state. And I have about 110 teams throughout the state. So that has allowed me to work with some different communities and groups as well. So that's been really nice. I am the vice president of the Nebraska, of the Bellevue Public School Foundation. And I've worked with them for quite a while. I am a director in the Kiwanis Club. I'm a trustee for NCAP, the Eastern Nebraska Community Action Partnership, which works to alleviate poverty. They're located in North Omaha, but they work all through Eastern Nebraska and including Bellevue, and they run the food pantry down here. So that's probably my biggest interface with that. I'm on various other groups as well. As far as the campaign goes, this is a very odd time to be campaigning. Not exactly how I had envisioned it a year ago, but we are doing literature drops, and sometimes you get to meet people if they're outside. You know, I mean, we have all the precautions in place and so forth, and then we have phone calls and postcards and all these digital things and all that. So we have a full campaign on it. I did win the primary election, so the campaign's going well, and I'm excited to have it wind down and be over, truthfully. I've been at this for a long time. As far as my priorities for the legislature, as a retired school teacher, I am very interested in educational policy and would like to do that. But the other piece of my background is I have long been concerned about children and about poverty and about taking care of communities. And so I am very much hoping to get on the Health and Human Services Committee as well. Beyond that, I'm pretty interested in transportation and communication because I really think that is the future. Decisions that will be made there, I think, will dictate a lot of things that we can do going forward. So that's kind of a nutshell there of me.
Thank you, Susan. And actually, your last comment was a really nice segue into one of our first questions. And just again, as background, we provided you with a set of 3 questions pertaining to the 50-plus voter in Nebraska. Again, allotting 5 minutes for each of those questions for you to answer. Our first question today comes surrounding helping people stay in their homes and communities, and Danny DeLong is going to ask you that question. So go ahead, Danny.
Hi, Susan. It's nice to meet you this morning, even though we're just having to do it in COVID-style meetings. But I was interested that you have an interest in serving on the board of the Community Action Agency there. I was the Associate Director of Northwest Nebraska Community Action in Shadman, and was the executive director of, prior to Rick Nation, at Blue Valley Community Action in Fairbury. So I come from a background of being interested in community development and low-income advocacy. Here's our first question for you, and as Gina said, it's right up your line. A livable community is one that is safe, secure, has housing that is affordable, in other words, no more than 30% of income is spent on housing, has transportation options that allow individuals to travel by multiple means, and has supportive community features and services for people of all ages, allowing people to remain in their communities as their age. Our question is this: what steps will you take to ensure all Nebraskans have access to livable communities?
Well, that's a big question. I will say that here in Bellevue and Sarpy County, that the lack of affordable housing is a big issue. And I think that's being attacked on a countywide level, but I think that's going to be in front of us for quite a while. And I think that does impact seniors. My feeling from going around and talking to people is that most people would prefer to age in place in their homes. And that certainly has been the case with not just people I talked to, but people I know, people in my own family. Not only is it more comfortable, but it also saves everybody money. So my own mother just passed away in January, and she was in a nursing home in an Alzheimer's unit, but she had up until the last 6 months been able to stay in her apartment and so forth. And she was much happier there. Ultimately, we had to move, and then the move cost like $10,000 a month. And then she broke her hip, and we had to have a full-time aide there, and it was $5,000 a week. And so I can only, I'm pretty aware of what these costs are at this point. So if you can stay home, but I have friends that have kept their loved ones home. Getting good caregivers is an issue, and caregivers don't make a lot of money. And so, I think if we could do some things to make that a more attractive, a career. There's a lot of people that are very empathetic, and they really would like to help other people. And I have met some of those people, but they have to make enough to support their families and so forth. So I think that's one of the things we can look at, is maybe doing some things to encourage and help these healthcare workers. And then, of course, there is a healthcare worker shortage. And so that's something else that has to be addressed. I know UNMC is trying to work on some of that, and they're trying to work on some healthcare initiatives for rural communities, where I think is more likely to be your healthcare shortage. Rural communities have real specialized needs, and there are not enough of them. And then of course, you mentioned we're having this meeting on Zoom. We've all gotten pretty good with Zoom. I know I have. And the telehealth. A lot of people really like telehealth, and I think sometimes that's really helpful. If you are aging and you don't feel very well and you want to talk to your doctor, but it isn't actually necessary to be face-to-face, that's really a nice option. But the rural broadband is so bad that's something the state has to get into right away, I think, and they're moving. But anything we can do for that would be helpful. And then, of course, there's reimbursement for telehealth you have to look at. If I could get the state more revenue, I could solve a lot of problems. But so I guess partly the legislature just needs to prioritize the needs of aging population, because it's growing and growing and growing. And so that's my thoughts. Livable communities, if you can stay at home and you can have a health care, and I know at least Bellevue, we're putting in special things, like on the sidewalks and so forth, to make it easier for people to get around. And we have bus transport. I mean, those are the kinds of things that need to continue and be supported.
Thank you, Susan. Our second question will come from health, caregiving, and home and community-based care from Susan DeCamp. And I know you've touched on a few of these topics already, but I think that all of these questions kind of interweave.
They do.
And so I think we can continue the conversation. So go ahead, Susan.
Okay. Good morning, Susan. Nice to have you with us. So like Gina said, you have answered most of my question already, but I will go ahead and read it again. Caregivers help older persons, as you know, live independently at home by providing assistance with activities such as bathing and dressing and performing medical and nursing tasks. But they often do it without any pay or little pay, and they often do it with little or no training, which you have already talked about. So with that in mind, I do have a two-part question. If you have any additional comments other than what you've already made. Firstly, will you support helping caregivers with things such as paid leave, respite services, telehealth, which you've talked about, and access to education and training? And secondly, how would you protect or expand paid services and supports, as well as financial security that allows more seniors to live independently in their homes and communities?
Yes, I will support trying to do everything we can, really, to help the caregivers. And, sometimes caregivers are family members. And so that would be a different type of help, I think, the respite care and things of that nature. But also, and then if you are somebody that's hired to come in, then that's a different, path. So we have to look at both paths, I think. I really think we need to make this more of a desirable career. And desirable career is going to require more money and definitely training. And I have to believe that these individuals who sign up for this, they would like more training. Everybody wants to be good at their job. And so, yes, I would back all of those kinds of things. Now, they all take money, and none of them relate to property taxes. So I don't know where this money would come from, but I would be happy to look into it and see what we can do. I read the stories in the national news and here locally about the nursing homes closing and people having to drive hours just to see somebody, and the devastation it causes in these communities with the ripple effect and all that. We need to work on that reimbursement rate. I know they've done some things, but it is not where it needs to be. And it's just going to get worse. So this comes back to prioritizing the aging population. So I am aware of that. And then, when you have these Medicare patients and they don't, they only have so much money and it doesn't cover their costs, and then you have to charge other people. And my mother would have fallen into that category. So her $10,000 a month was for her and for some other people. And we really, not that I mind it, but we could do better than that. We could have a better system. As far as people being able to stay in their homes monetarily, I know a lot of people don't have much in the way of savings, and they don't live on very much. I've wondered if the state could do something with some sort of a retirement savings plan of some kind. I think this is a crisis that's coming at us that hasn't blossomed all the way yet, but it's coming. And so I guess I think about that. Maybe we could give some sort of tax breaks too to caregivers. I was thinking about that. Some kind of effort to raise their wages. I'm willing to look at virtually anything. I think this is a huge problem. So I guess, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Following up just a little bit, you touched a little bit on financial security, and keeping people in their homes. A couple of other areas would be the homestead exemption and the SNAP program. I'm assuming that you would be supportive of those types of things. Okay.
Yeah, anything. Well, yeah, we would like our elderly to eat. That would be good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. And another part of that too, and you touched very briefly, but another area that AARP has interest in is the work and save programs. And really it's an intergenerational investing in our young people to put away the money, to find the money to put away, so then when they do retire, they're able to pay for their care longer. And as people are living longer, obviously it takes more money to live longer. And so I appreciate your comments on that. And that's definitely an area that we're also mingling in. So I do appreciate your comments and would love to work with you on that. Our last question, we're going to switch gears. We've talked a little bit about this, but Bob Lassen's going to address our nursing facility quality questions. So go ahead, Bob. I think you're on mute, Bob. Bob, you're still on mute.
There we go. Had some telephone background, so. Thank you, Susan, for being here. Now, I'm going to repeat the question for the viewers because they don't know what the questions were. I know there's a lot of things you've already covered. There's an estimated 6,600 Nebraskans reside in one of Nebraska's 211 nursing homes. By 2040, the University of Nebraska Omaha projects the number will increase and almost double to 14,000. Due to a variety of factors over the past years, Nebraska has seen an increase in nursing facilities having to close and residents having to relocate elsewhere. How will you ensure that Nebraska residents receive quality nursing home care, including ensuring an adequate nursing force, education, training, and reimbursement? Now, we talked about reimbursement, and one of the things that I'd like you to expand on, if you could, would be the educational part of it, and particularly when we're looking at the rural areas.
Well, I think we need to expand I'm in favor of education in general, but education training for caregivers and education training for nursing. Frankly, we have a nursing shortage as well. And so that's another whole piece of the problem, because I know as people age, as they get further into it, they need more specialized care. And so you're going to need more nurses. And I know that's being addressed on a number of different levels. I think UNMC is working on that. But again, we need to encourage people to go into that. I think that we need to, one of the things we could look at is expanding adult foster care. Maybe we could keep some people in homes, even if it isn't their home, but they could be cared for. And I think that's something we could look at. A lot of, this all comes down to money, but we could work as a state to ensure communities have the resources to help these seniors, encourage them to put their money and perhaps, put some of the state money too into some of this. I do think that the rural communities offer a very different challenge than something like my district. The rural communities have decreasing populations, but the population that's there tends to be older. And so they will have to, I think the state just has to really take a look at this, because as they're older, they're probably going to need more assisted living facilities. So we have to look at how are you going to regulate that? How are you going to reimburse that? I know that DHHS is looking at some different ways of reimbursing nursing homes to try to improve the quality of care. But quality of care is a piece of that is also going to be the training of these individuals and the reimbursement. It all comes back to reimbursement rates, but I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
You did. I was particularly taken with that adult foster care because I know that we do that in some segments of the population, and it works very well. So
it has real promise, I think, as a bigger program.
And Susan, I appreciate very much your comments. The intergenerational concept is another area that AARP continues to work in, because again, it's that investing in our future, and that there's studies and things that have proven that intergenerational is not only beneficial for the aging person, but also for a younger generation. And so very much appreciate your comments on that. So,
as a grandmother of 14, I enjoy intergenerational.
Susan, as we come to the end of our meeting, I want to offer you the final minutes to, again, offer any closing thoughts, comments, or messages you want to send to your constituents as we get to the end of our meeting. So thank you again for taking the time to visit with us. If you want to go ahead and spend the remaining time, if you have any closing comments.
Well, this is these problems are something I've been thinking about for a long time, primarily because of my parents, but then the parents of my friends as well. You know, that this is something that has become really quite vivid to me. And then my mother-in-law, she was in a much smaller town and had to go into nursing and rehabilitation. And it was really quite a different situation than my own mother, who was in a more urban area. So I really got a chance to see some of the differences there. We really need a multi-pronged approach here to look at this problem, because not everybody is going to benefit from the same solution or even be able to take advantage of the same solution. I mean, this is going to have to be tailored, I think, a little bit to some of these different areas. Expansion of caregivers, I think, is going to be critical. Keeping this reimbursement where we can keep the nursing homes open, and quite frankly, based on the population projections, they're going to have to be expanded. There'll have to be more of them. We'll have to have more assisted. And then like the foster care and so on, there are all kinds of different programs we could take a look at. But I think as a society, we need to look after our seniors. I mean, that's something we are charged to do. And as a state, we are charged to look after our population, whether they're very young or whether they're aging. And so that's how I view government.
Great. Thank you again, Susan, for taking the time to visit with us. We wish you the best with your campaign. And again, thank you for meeting with AARP Nebraska today.
Well, thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nice to meet
Susan.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Maybe in person someday.
Yes.
See you on the trail.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.